Which veteran cornerback should the Seattle Seahawks sign to add depth to their roster? What's going on, everybody? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well on this Wednesday. Streaming later tonight on the Bleacher Report. We're going to go live at about 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific time, and we're going to go for about a half hour just talking about Seahawks stuff, talking about some OTAs, talking about some of the recent happenings, talking about where this team sits, and just kind of easing our way into the slow part of the offseason. So try to tune in. I'll be posting the link to the show later today in the community tab. It'll also go out on Discord. If you're already following me over on the Bleacher Report app, you should be able to get to it there. So however it is that you interact with my Bleacher Report, just get on over there. Hope to see you guys there soon. Yeah. So remember, I'll be doing immediate post-game streams on the Bleacher Report when the season starts. So if you're not over there yet, you should probably start getting over there now, because that's going to be a pretty important part of weekly Seahawks content for the 2025 season. Okay, so today's video is going to be about a topic that I think most Seahawks fans are pretty tuned into, but we got to keep going with this, because the Seattle Seahawks, in my purview of things, have a pretty clear need, and they did basically nothing to address it in the draft, and did very little to address it in the offseason as a whole. And I'm talking about the cornerback position. I'm talking about specifically outside cornerback, wide cornerback. What are we going to do there? We need depth. Now, that's the good news, right? We don't really need a starter. At least I don't think we do. We need depth. So you look at the depth chart on ESPN.com right now, and it immediately jumps out to you, right? You've got Riq Woolen and Josh Jobe listed as the starters on the outside. Now, because Emin Wari looks like he's going to be playing a lot of slot as a rookie, Witherspoon probably becomes an outside corner. So you're looking at Witherspoon and Woolen as your starting outside corners, and then you've got Jobe and Nehemiah Pritchett as your two top corners off the bench. Now, that's not too bad, but Pritchett looked very, very poor last year, the tiny bit that he did play. I don't think it's a big indictment on him, but he may not be ready to be a plus player yet. And some people don't even like Jobe that much. And then there are some people that don't think of the world of Riq Woolen. And honestly, I'm kind of one of them at this point. I'm at least very bearish on him as an all-around long-term piece of this defense. Maybe we can squeeze a all-around decent year out of him in 2025. But I'm not in love with the cornerback situation on the outside. And then after that, you have basically nothing. You have Zy Alexander, a UDFA rookie. You have Shamar Jean-Charles, who is, I mean, it gets very, very tough very quickly. So I think the Seahawks need to add a veteran corner. I think that they need to find a way to bolster their cornerback depth. And it's June now. It's past June 1st. Remember, signings made in free agency post June 1st are going to be not taken into account when determining compensatory picks. So, not that I think the Seahawks are going to play the compensatory game next year, but it is now less costly. And by the way, sorry for the little glimmer on my neck. I don't know what's going on with the background filter, whatever. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that now you are free to sign players and you don't have to worry about any negative consequences from it. You just have to worry about signing the right guy. So we're going to go through some options in this video. Please click the thumbs up button on this video if you haven't already. Subscribe if you're new. Click the bell for notifications. Become a channel member for $2 a month. Those are the best ways to help support the channel. All right, so we're going to lead off with the heavy hitter here. We're going to lead off with the big gun. This is the one that a lot of people talk about, Jaylen Ramsay. Now, this guy you'd have to trade for. right? You're not going to sign this guy. He's still on the Dolphins. So Jaylen Ramsay is coming off a pretty respectable year. PFF thought he played really well last year for a Dolphins team that was okay. Lost a lot of their defensive talent. They put a lot on Jaylen Ramsay's shoulders. And he gave you 1,000 snaps of some pretty decent play. Wasn't locked down in coverage at this point. Wasn't somebody that was just like money in the bank anymore. But still capable of playing some pretty effective football. Still capable of getting it done. And remember, he was on a pretty flawed team last year. A pretty flawed defense. So the fact that he was able to provide what he provided is fairly notable. Now, this one's a little bit more complicated than some of the others because of the money. Jaylen Ramsay got a pretty fat contract extension from the Dolphins last year, and most of that contract is still there. So you're going to have to work some magic here. So you've got 2025, the current year. He's 31, by the way, which is old, but it's not super old. I don't think that's like a deal breaker, especially because somebody like a Jaylen Ramsay should be able to make a good safety after his cornerback career, which we may end up desiring. But you can see the cap hits. You can see how they blow up over the next few years. Like this year, 16.7, the next year 25, the next year 26.8, the next year 36.2. Then we got some void years in the 3 years after that. So Miami is theoretically on the hook for most of that. Like you can see that his base salary, and the base is what the Seahawks would have to worry about in a trade, is actually very reasonable for the next few years. You have a minimum. You have the literal vet min base salary for 2025. And then it goes up to 10, and then 10, and then 21. That's what the Seahawks would be on the hook for. And remember, none of that base salary is guaranteed. So if you trade for him and he's not good, you can let him go. And in theory, there's very little, if any, dead money you have to worry about because the Dolphins are taking on the bonus. Now, when you take a look at this, you can see what would the bonuses be. Like for 2025 alone, you have over $15 million in money that isn't base. This year you have about 15 million as well. The year after that you have 16, almost 17 million. So that's a massive amount of dead money that the Dolphins are piling up on any kind of a Ramsay move. So assuming that this contract follows a typical contract layout, the Dolphins would be very, very pressed financially to move off of Ramsay. You can see what the dead cap is. Now, I think very obviously you'd have to find some way to defray that cost for the Dolphins, reduce it to make this a little more worth it. And this also means even with that, you're going to have to give up something real in a trade. You're not going to be able to get away with like, oh, here's a 6th round pick, throwaway, whatever. You're going to have to give up something real, probably at least a 4th round pick. I'd be okay with giving up a 4th round pick for Jaylen Ramsay because again, it's going to be reasonable to move off of him. Even if you take on some of the bonus money in the trade, it's going to be reasonable to move off of him very quickly. It can be a 1-year thing or a 2-year thing, and then you just move on to the next thing. Like, that's reasonable, but you're going to have to balance it out. You're going to have to make it financially feasible for the Dolphins, and you're going to have to also make it worth it for them in terms of draft capital, and that's at least a 4th round pick. So like I said, that's the big gun. That's the big thing we could do. That's like the one, other than a Micah Parsons type thing, which is pretty far-fetched. This is like the one big swing you could take at trying to get an outside corner that is really good and could even supplant a guy like Riq Woolen, because Ramsay offers a little bit more overall compared to Woolen, even if Woolen might be a little bit better in coverage at this point. I don't think that that totally offsets the fact that Ramsay's a much better tackler, and also his level of experience and just the leadership he can probably offer the defense. So after that, pretty much everybody else worth talking about is still a free agent, and it's a pretty decent list of options. I'm going to go through a bunch of the top ones right now. And For the most part, I don't think there's a huge difference between any of these guys. I think some of them would be a little better than others. But overall, I think that you are looking at a situation where you can just kind of close your eyes, reach into the bag, pull it out, and whatever you pull out is going to be adequate. So, taking a look at the top remaining available cornerbacks in free agency. Remember, no comp pick considerations anymore because it's post June 1st. First guy on the list is James Bradbury, who did not play any football last year. Last year, he got injured before the season started, missed the whole year, and then he got released by the Eagles in the offseason. 31 years old. PFF lists him as a safety, even though he's not played a significant percentage of his snaps at safety. That may reflect the fact that he is probably due to move over to safety soon here. If you look at 2023, which is his most recent season, he played the whole year, and he played passably, right? He played okay, and now he's 2 years removed, and now he's a major injury removed. This is probably not what you're looking for. I mean, this was a very dicey season for Bradbury anyway. So I think this one's a little bit tough to justify. The next guy would be Kendall Fuller, another Dolphins corner, or former Dolphin. A year younger, 30 years old. Had a pretty decent year last year for the Miami Dolphins, 66.2 grade overall. Played not the whole season, but whoever we sign, unless it's Ramsay, who we would not sign, we trade, is not going to be expected to be the starter anyway, so it's not like that's that big of a deal. His coverage metrics were pretty good, pretty respectable, so this would not be too bad of an option either. And our next guy is going to be somebody the Seahawks met with a couple weeks ago, Rasul Douglas, Buffalo Bill corner, 29, so maybe not in his prime, but pretty close. Coming off an okay season for the Bills, and coming off a season where he played basically the whole year. Not the greatest coverage metrics in the world, 123.7 passer rating allowed when targeted, 40 catches allowed. But generally speaking, this is considered to be quite a good player. And again, we're not looking for the king of the world here. We're looking for somebody who is capable and can slot into a backup role and be your first or second guy off the bench. Be somebody that gets on the field sparingly, you hope, and you trust them in the event that something goes really, really bad and somebody goes down and misses time. You trust them. So Rasul Douglas, not a bad option, probably better than the previous two guys we just looked at. Next guy is Stephon Gilmore. Been in the league a long time, had a lot of success, but 34 years old now. I think you're starting to push it. He did play okay last year. He had a decent season in 2024, but at 24 years old and 6 years removed from winning Defensive Player of the Year, you're probably pushing it a little bit here. Like last year, he was fine. He played pretty good. 100.6 QB rating allowed is okay. Probably fits a role of a backup or even secondary backup corner. Did play most of the season last year, so it's not like he's broken down yet. But at 34, you're definitely pushing it. Next guy is Mike Hilton, and we're not going to talk about this one. This guy's a pure slot. But for anyone who is wondering about him, because obviously he's a high-profile free agent corner, the answer is no, we don't need another slot guy. If anything, we have between Eminwari and Witherspoon an embarrassment of riches at nickel. So the next guy would be, I guess, CJ Henderson. This is your reclamation project, former top 10 pick. But he's been so bad for so long that at this point, I think we just need to write him off. Like, he did not play at all in 2024, and it wasn't because he got hurt. It was because he's not good at football. 2023, when he did play some, was by all accounts very bad. Doesn't really bring much to the table that you would want here. I think at this point, we need to write him off. Just not a good football player. After that, you have another guy that the Seahawks have met with, Shaq Griffin, who, of course, former Seahawk, former Jaguar, former Viking, had a decent year last year with the Vikings. I'm a little bit wary of guys that succeed with Brian Flores because, you know, he's got some serious tricks up his sleeve. So for me, I'm a little bit wary of these grades, but I do think he had a pretty good season, played a pretty decent chunk of it as well. 73.8 QB rating allowed when targeted. That's pretty money. So this is one that would make a lot of sense. He's only 29. There's every reason to believe he can give you one more good season before he hits his, post prime era. So I'd like this one. The next guy after that would be Michael Davis of the Commanders. Did not play very much in 2024, and when he did play, he was considered to be quite poor. But it's a small sample size. I'm not overly worried about that. If you go back to 2023, it's better. It's more manageable. Played basically the whole season. Did get beat up in coverage a good amount, but overall was an adequate player. And again, understand what we're looking for here. We're looking for competency. We're not looking for guys who are studs. There aren't studs available. If they were studs, they'd be long gone, or they'd be somebody you have to trade for, like Ramsay, and somebody you'd pay a lot of money, like Ramsay. Like even with this Ramsay contract, there's going to be some kind of financial pressure to having Ramsay on your team. You might have to give him a new contract because a lot of times players want new contracts when they get traded for. So it's a little more complicated than just getting Jaylen Ramsay. Remember that these guys we're talking about here, like Rasul Douglas was supposed to get almost 12 million a year according to Spotrac. That's clearly not happening now. So I don't think that we have to really think about that too much. So all these guys should be costing like less than 6 million, and it's mostly 1-year deals because these guys are older. But anyway, yeah, Michael Davis. After that, you had Emmanuel Mosley. This is like if you really, really feel like just messing around and throwing a dart at the wall with a blindfold on. This guy has not played football in any significant fashion since 2022 when he was quite good. He was pretty good, but even that year, he didn't play a ton. This guy has played less than 350 snaps over the last 3 years combined. If you go back to 2021, it's a more robust season, 600 snaps, but this guy can't stay on the field. But hey, could be fun, I guess. And final guy I want to look at here is a guy that I'm surprised is still available. I know he's coming off an injured season, but Asante Samuel Jr., former, I think he was a second-round pick. Most of his experience comes playing on the outside. He's only 25, and he's been pretty good in this league before. He had 234 snaps last year, so I understand the lack of overwhelming appeal. But you go back to the previous year, he was quite good for that Chargers team. So I'm a little bit surprised he's still out there. Maybe he still needs to rehab, but to me, that would be a really fun one because there's actual upside there, and that could be a long-term solution. There are probably a few other guys that are worth thinking about, but I'm not going to go any deeper than how I just went. So those are the veteran corners the Seahawks could acquire to my knowledge. Let me know who you guys want. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys soon. Go Hawks. Let's get a veteran corner in here and improve our depth.